the super brains in China and US, they're like different mindset and different skill set, because most of the researchers in Z.ai, they haven't gone abroad. They study here and study in Tsinghua University and work for a Chinese company. But for OpenAI and Meta, I think those researchers, they got their PhD overseas in the United States and maybe in MIT, Carnegie Mellon. So the researchers here, they read a lot of papers, and we don't believe that it deserved to cost you like $100 million to hire the people.
Welcome to Manifold. My guest today is Li Zixuan. He is with us from Beijing. He is an employee of Z.ai, which is one of the leading AI companies in China. Li grew up in China, but he studied in the United States at Carnegie Mellon University. And now he is in the middle of the hottest field in the world, which is large language model AIs. Li, welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. Glad to be here and share more about Z.ai and also the development of Chinese LLM industry.
Great, great. I was just saying to you before we started recording that, if you're in tech and if you're in AI in the United States, everybody is always talking about the AI competition with China, NVIDIA chips, Huawei Ascend chips. Is DeepSeek better than OpenAI? All these questions like this, but we seldom get to hear from someone who's really in the industry on the Chinese side. And the only guest I've had so far on my show that has that background is someone who was a researcher at DeepSeek and is now in the United States. So I think my audience will be super interested.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and go to school? What did you want to do when you were young? And how did you end up being in AI?
Okay, so I will start from the undergrad because I studied law and journalism. But before that, I do math competitions, but finally look at some movies about lawyers and finally choose to become a lawyer. But after the undergrad, I think it's not very funny. I don't like working with Word, Excel. I love working with AI. So I finally decided to join a legal tech company, creating softwares for lawyers and for them to search cases. So if you know LexisNexis or Westlaw, I'm kind of building the similar things for Chinese lawyers. And after 3 to 4 years, I decided to pursue more solid technology. So I studied in the United States, in MIT, and also Carnegie Mellon, learned some basic machine learning thing, before the era of the current generative AI. And after that, I decided, okay, it's time for going back to China. But what I've learned is basically the traditional machine learning. So I'm not capable of doing the frontier research here. So I do the supporting stuff, for example, product design, marketing, and also collaboration, because I'm the right person to comprehend all the things and communicate this stuff to the audience. So I joined Z.ai last year, coming back from the United States. At that time, we haven't done anything related to the overseas business. And half of our models are proprietary. So there's no way we can cooperate with US-based companies, inference providers, and the benchmark companies. We just did our own stuff inside China. And this year, with like the popularity of DeepSeek and Quinn and other open source models, we are opening up, providing more open source models, and this gave us opportunity to let the world know about us. Yeah, so here I am. And also, I'm the owner of our X account at Z.ai chat. So if you have used chat.z.ai, it's the platform similar to ChatGPT. Yeah, I'm the product leader of this project.
Got it. So if I have my history right, Z.ai was originally one of the more famous genAI companies in China, right? At a time when DeepSeek was pretty much unknown, Z.ai was one of maybe 5 leading AI companies. Do I have the history right?
Yes, and we are more than that. So we started our GLM series models back in 2021. So I believe it's the time of GPT-2. So we started very early and do trillions of parameters training. So at that time, our model is like 1.75 trillion parameters. It's bigger than Kimi K2 actually. but we did this because we couldn't understand how to shrink the size and how to find the high quality data. But we did the exploration very early, and you can see from the archive we have the GLM, the first series paper. You can see on the archive, it's date back to the 2021. And
got it.
We have like
sorry.
Yeah, we became very famous in 2023. We open sourced our GLM 130 billion parameters model, and also ChatGLM 6 billion parameter models. So at that time we are leading in China. Yeah, but then with the rise of Alibaba and ByteDance, like they have more money, more resources, they kind of like created things like Quinn, ByteDance, like Doubao, and also DeepSeek. DeepSeek is very rich because they're a quant company. They have GPUs and money. So 2024 is very hard for us, and we're trying to reshape our training methodology, our team, and finally created something last month.
Right. So in China, you have quite a mix. So as you listed a bunch of the companies that are leading AI companies in China, and some of them are part of gigantic corporations, which are more analogous to Google or Amazon. Some are startups like Z. So you guys must be one of the smallest leading Gen AI companies in China. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
So are you like 100 people, few hundred people?
I think 500 because 500. Yeah, because the company include the research, engineering team, product team, also sales, because sales is very hard in China. You have to directly contact each enterprises or developers. So it's not like the ecosystem in the United States where you just let the users subscribe your software and the money just came. Yeah, so for us, we need to do a lot of product solution and more on the engineering side where you transform the LLMs into the real solution or softwares and deploy them on the original system of the enterprises.
So in terms of core technical staff that really are involved in model training, post-training, safety research, those kinds of core technical things, it's no more than a few hundred people.
Yes, yes.
Right. But now the model you just released, which is I think GLM 4.5, that is a state-of-the-art model, right? On the major benchmarks, it's pretty much competitive with Qwen, Kimi K2, DeepSeek, and even the Western models. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair. And it's a very balanced model. So when we look at DeepSeek R1, is very solid in reasoning and coding, front-end coding, especially front-end coding. And for Qwen, they have separate models, right? They have instruct model, thinking models, and coder. But for GLM 4.5, we try to incorporate all the capabilities in a single model. So let it do the ARC thing. Yeah, so you mentioned ARC thing in the list. So ARC means agentic reasoning and coding. So we let the GLM study all the agentic thing, coding thing, and reasoning thing and combine into one model. So that's our competitive advantage compared to other companies.
Right. Talk a little bit about what people would call the model card for GLM 4.5. So how many parameters in size, what kind of data was used in training? Is there anything special about the architecture that's significantly different from, say, DeepSeek or Qwen? Maybe you could just talk about those aspects of the model.
Okay, so we have two models, 4.5 and 4.5 Air. 4.5 is a 355 billion parameters model, and Air is quite small. It's over 106 billion parameter model. And they use the similar data. So you just think about it, that 4.5 is a scaling up of 4.5 Air. And the data we used, which we did detailed in our tech report, like traditional training pipeline. But the most interesting here is how we train the agentic capabilities. So between the pre-training phase and the post-training phase, we insert a phase called mid-training. So in this mid-training, we deliver high-quality data like repository level code, math competition solution, and also agentic trajectories. So you have this multiple tool calling and like function use combined with reasoning. So we use all these kind of data in the mid-training phase, trying to let the model speak the same language as the math competition, like winners, or the Manus or Janspark, who can speak the language of agentic tool use. So before the post-training, the model has already gained the capabilities of doing stuff like reasoning or agentic tool use. And our post-training become very easy because we only need to give the answer to the model to let it inference correctly. So we don't have to worry about whether it understands what it is doing. And for the architecture, our model is deeper, so have more layers compared to K2 and DeepSeek based on our own experiments. But I think that's not an innovation. It's just based on the experiment. Yeah. The true innovation behind this model is the data and the methodology. And also it's a hybrid reasoning model. So DeepSeek v3.1 just released today. So we look at the model. It's also a hybrid reasoning model. Yeah, trying to combine all the things in a single model.
When it comes to the architectural speed ups and efficiency optimizations that DeepSeek did, back in sort of V3, like things like KV cache, is that now universally adopted by the Chinese companies? Because DeepSeek was very open about all the stuff they did. Have their innovations been broadly adopted by the other Chinese companies?
Yes, yes, that's correct. Both Kimi K2 and GLM 4.5, I think they learn a lot from DeepSeek V3 architecture. And in our training, we only chose the best pipeline or best architecture for the performance. We did a lot of experiments, and for the adapter, we used more. And for our RL training, we used our internal innovation called Slime. So all these are based on the very scientific experiments. And DeepSeek V3 just contribute a lot more compared to other companies or entities.
Right. And on a per token efficiency level or per token cost, how do you compare? Is there sort of rough parity now between all the best open source models coming from China?
I think it depends on the activation parameters. So if you have similar activation parameters, it's merely the same. But for the training stuff, I think the most impressive thing about DeepSeek V3 is how it make it less costly in its training phase. And we try to use more techniques to lower that cost. But for the inference cost, I think it's basically the same. And for Z.ai chat, so we provide services globally. And it reduces our cost because the machines keep running. You don't have to buy a lot of GPUs to make it suitable only for Chinese users, and you can accommodate more user requests globally.
So I had a guest on a few episodes ago who is an AI researcher at Google, and when I had him on, it was right when there was a lot of publicity about Meta and Mark Zuckerberg hiring people from, stealing people from OpenAI, from Google, from other organizations, and paying what was reported at the time super huge compensation packages. And my guest said he didn't think there were any secrets. So he thought, once you get to a certain level within these, in his case, he was talking about the US companies. So Google, DeepMind competing with OpenAI, competing with Anthropic, et cetera. He said he didn't think there were really any secrets. And so, maybe there's some reason for Mark to pay so much money to hire these people, but he personally didn't feel it necessarily made sense. I'm curious how, and another thing that was reported about those hires at Meta for their artificial super intelligence team, that's what it's called, is, over half of those people, maybe 2/3 of those people were Chinese, actually, maybe even from China, that were recruited, like sort of superstar recruits that were paid, reportedly $100 million packages. I'm curious what this looked like to people in China, in Beijing or in Hangzhou. What did people there think of Mark Zuckerberg paying so much money for that talent? Because I'm guessing very similar talent exists in where you live in Beijing or in Hangzhou. So what was the reaction in China to this?
That's a great question. And I believe that the super brains in China and US, they're like different mindset and different skill set, because most of the researchers in Z.ai, they haven't gone abroad. They study here and study in Tsinghua University and work for a Chinese company. But for OpenAI and Meta, I think those researchers, they got their PhD overseas in the United States and maybe in MIT, Carnegie Mellon. So the researchers here, they read a lot of papers, and we don't believe that it deserved to cost you like $100 million to hire the people. Currently, for training a GLM 4.5 level model, we think those people are too expensive.
Yeah.
But
Let me say it. Let me say it in a very provocative way, because first of all, GLM 4.5 is way better than anything Meta has ever produced. And if their next model is as good as 4.5, it's already a huge leap for Meta. But probably that $100 million package pays for almost like the whole team at Z.ai. Am I wrong?
I think for the most expensive person, yeah, the package can cover all the all the researchers here.
Yeah.
But I think training and doing research are different things. So maybe Mark Zuckerberg is chasing the next generation LLMs. Yeah, they have more GPUs to do experiments compared to ours. And they're not just doing training, because when you look at the average engineer, the software engineer and machine learning engineer, they don't have packages like that. So all the people with like millions or tens of millions dollars, they are researchers. So they don't actually train the model. Yeah, they do research and predict the future. And but by at Z.ai, I think we lack those people. We have people like that, but not as many as the people at Meta. But for training models, it's a different story. So training model, I think there are SOPs, and you just need to do the experiments, look at the paper, see what everybody else is doing, and you have to do a lot of dirty work. Yeah, the data, how you clean the data, how you gather the data. I think that's what not Meta's paying for their scientists.
So for people like that, I think you sort of referred to them as researchers who are maybe seeing where the field is going rather than actually engineering the training of the next model, but looking a little bit further in the future. Which open source model companies in China do you think are strongest in that category, in that area?
Open source, I would choose DeepSeek. And for closed source, I will go with ByteDance.
Okay.
Yep. ByteDance is underrated globally only because it's not open source. Yeah, they're kind of Google in China, because they can earn money from everywhere. Yeah, Google don't have to worry about whether it earn money from Gemini, but for other companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, it needs to earn money from its AI services.
Got it. Now, for the top 5 or so genAI labs in China, do you feel the government is actually helping you, or do you feel at Z that, hey, we're just a startup and we have to survive on our own, and we could easily not survive if we don't execute? Like where do you feel the strategic support from the government impacting you? Is it in the data center access, or is it in money, or what kind of support do you actually get?
I think we get support, but not as much as the U.S. government or U.S. citizens believe. Because we are a company, we have to earn money. Yeah, government don't bring customers to us. Maybe give us more exposure to the resources, but we have to earn these resources on our own. Yes, the government provide a value for you, and you need to compete with other companies like Kimi K2 and like Quinn. So for the data centers or even for the money, why they should finance you, you have to prove it. So
right.
I think it's similar to the US, because also like OpenAI gets support from US government. We get support, but that support is not very like in a solid way. So money doesn't like directly give us only because we are leading open source company. So we have to do a lot of things to prove ourselves.
Right. I mean, this is speculation, but I imagine a really truly strategic company like SMIC or maybe Huawei, the hardware part of Huawei, maybe they can get some direct support from the government. But my impression is for you guys and Kimi and DeepSeek, you guys are all just competing, like almost just like companies in the US are competing. Like you're not really getting reliable support from the government.
Yeah, I think the reason, one of the reason from my point of view is that we are not a hardware company. So there's no imports or like controls over the access of these resources. So if some resources are controlled by other entities, we might need some other support. But currently, we are just doing the software side or the AI side. And it seems that the government don't have to put much effort into our products or services.
So when the DeepSeek moment happened in early, I think it was early 2025, earlier this year, the DeepSeek moment happened. The perspective from tech people in the US was, oh, now DeepSeek suddenly became like the darling of the government. You know, Liang Wanfeng was, you know, invited to Beijing to meet, I guess he met Xi Jinping or something. Everyone here in America thought, oh, these guys did their training. They only spent $5 million or $6 million to do their main training run. And they did it on some, you know, maybe A100s they had bought already while, you know, using the quant trading money. But now they'll get infinite hardware support, data center support from the government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about that? Do you think the government is picking a national champion like that and really supporting them in a way that they don't support Z.ai or Kimi? Like, how different do you think the situations are?
I think DeepSeek is very hot. In terms of government level support, I think it's the champion, but not infinite resources because we don't have infinite sources here. Maybe DeepSeek, they don't have to worry about commercialization. Yeah, I think that's very true here, that DeepSeek is an AI lab. It's not a company, actually. Mm-hmm. So the government can make sure that like you can lose money. You just did the training and provide the best models in the world and compete with other models or proprietary models. Yeah, so the government can make sure that DeepSeek don't have to worry about this. But DeepSeek don't need customers. So its customers, so the paying customers are only the API users. So for the chatbot, nobody pays for the chatbot. It's totally free. And for the like local deployment or projects, DeepSeek doesn't have any service like that. So other companies, they use the DeepSeek open source models to do the deployment and serve the companies. But DeepSeek doesn't do this thing on their own, like putting all its effort in the training. And the government want to make sure that the thing can going on.
Got it. So they're the special case. Now, QN has support because they're part of Alibaba, but the really excellent models that have to kind of survive on their own as companies really are you guys, Z, Kimi, right? And is there another one? I mean, it's probably you guys, right? The other ones are part of much bigger companies that make money doing lots of other stuff. Is that correct?
Yes. So I just saw a graph listing the tiers of Chinese AI labs, especially in the open source domain. So Quinn and DeepSeek, they're the first level, and Kimi and Z, the second level. Other companies like Step and also Red Node, like they're coming up. And we believe that it's a hard time for us because we're competing with giant companies like ByteDance and Alibaba. We need to get financing, and we also need to acquire customers from their customers, right? Yeah, so the competition between models I think that's one thing, and like competition among customers is another thing. Like you need to get the trust from the customer. You need to provide solution and your pricing strategies. There are a lot of stuff beyond the models.
I just to reassure you, I'll tell you that over the summer I had some conversations with some of the most senior people at OpenAI, and they're stressed out too because they're aware that the open source models can cannibalize their revenue from below. And also they have to compete against some big monopolies like Google and things like this. So, so they're under a lot of pressure too. Everybody actually feels they're under pressure. Of course, some people are luckier than others, but still everybody, even I'm telling you, even the top people at OpenAI feel tremendous pressure. I mean, it's an amazing competition that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's so true. So I work 20 hours a day during the past 2 months. Yeah, because we only have 13K followers on X, and DeepSeek have like 100 times more. So I need to use my effort to help the training team to make the model more famous so that we can get more resources, more customers to get the model more famous. Because when I post an next post without promotion, without like DM anyone, it only get 1K views or exposure. So even our followers cannot see what we are doing right now. That I need to work very hard to build this Z.ai chat to let people try out the model freely. Yeah, and also
It's
like
tough.
yeah,
I think in the West, people know about DeepSeek, but after DeepSeek, the level of awareness drops tremendously. So even QN, K2, you guys, like there's very little awareness. I use all your models because I'm just curious about the quality level. So I sort of cycle through all of the Chinese open source models just to get a sense of the quality level. And I find it quite impressive. I actually, maybe the best OpenAI performance is a little bit better, but I think the gap is not really very big, and it really depends a lot on what you're trying to do, actually.
Yeah, DeepSeek R1, I think it's a moment that we cannot replicate, or even DeepSeek cannot replicate. Right. Because it's the first time people see the chain of thoughts like coming out of a model, not human-made. Mm-hmm. And also the performance, I think it's equivalent to O1 at that time. So equivalent to the top proprietary models. And we believe that there's a gap between the top open source model and the top proprietary models currently. But like in the earlier 2025, the R1 really impressed the world by surprising a lot of people. Even the US company CEOs, so a lot of CEOs, they're freaking out by this model.
Yeah, I've never tried the ByteDance models. Do you feel they are better than the open source models in China?
I think they're kind of Gemini thing. They incorporate the vision capabilities and the thinking. I think the coding is not comparable to the top open source models, but in other areas like role playing, like vision, it's pretty close to Gemini 2.5 Pro. And they're earning money with this model. Deep Double Seed, yes. 1.6 and 1.6 thinking.
So one of the big differences between the perspective here and in China, in my experience, is the way that we would say it in Silicon Valley is being AGI pilled, P-I-L-L-E-D, AGI pilled, which means that you think AGI or ASI is right around the corner, and there could be a very rapid takeoff to reach that level. Whereas I think in China, fewer people think it's right around the corner and there will be a fast takeoff. So I'm curious what you think about that, because it seems like people in China are just more pragmatic about it. Like they are building models which are almost as good as the U.S. side models, but the whole attitude, the worldview of what's going to happen in the next 3 years or 5 years, it seems quite different to me. But I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. We are more pragmatic. And even though we are chasing AGI right now, there's no unified, I think the definition of AGI currently. What AGI means is a model can doing IMO problems or can replace lawyers or like financial analysts. There's no definition. For us, we're chasing AGI by incorporating more human-like capabilities, like agentic tool use. And now currently we are working on multi-agent system. And we believe that for AGI, you need to connect to the physical world. So none of the models can do this currently. Yeah, for agentic stuff, it doesn't mean that making the slides or making a deep research report is AGI. Yeah, you need to operate like human. Maybe one day we can realize this by tool calling a robot hand or something like that. But people need to work on it. It's not near for us.
So you might know that my main job is as a theoretical physicist. So I do research in theoretical physics, and I have access to some of the leading specialized models. So coming from some of the top labs, specialized models for science or for physics, which are analogous to the IMO models, right? But for science and physics. And so I'm able to submit research queries to these specialized models, which have essentially kind of unlimited token budgets. And what they're able to do is actually really impressive. So they are actually right on the verge where I actually think probably in the next year or two, you'll see some good scientific papers, theoretical physics papers, in which the effectively co-authored is a model, because the model is actually able to do some non-trivial stuff. Same way it can solve like an IMO problem. If a researcher gives them kind of a well-posed thing, it can actually make a significant contribution now to, in this case, physics research. So it is really impressive what you can do. Like typically these are pipelines where you have large number of tokens, you have different instances of the model which are trying to propose different solutions, and then you have verifiers that are sort of checking the solutions to make sure that they make sense, or checking the citations, looking at the references. So that whole pipeline, which consumes a huge number of tokens, it does generate really amazing stuff. At the moment, you have to be an actual leading researcher to be able to understand the output, to like actually tell like this is junk, but this is actually something original and really good. But we're right around the corner. I think right around the corner where you're going to start to see papers in which an AI actually made a significant contribution to the research.
Yeah. So, and we can also see DeepSeek is making their prover, like Biden is making the prover, trying to solve the math problems. And that's very great. And we are working on similar thing, not the prover, but we are doing AI for science as well. Mm-hmm. We believe that like for AGI, I think specialized model is not enough. So you need to like integrate all the capabilities into several models, not a single one, but maybe for several models can perform all the tasks and chasing the AGI. So in that way, I think Grok Heavy and GPT-5 are somehow underrated because they are trying to improve the intelligence level, even though some people will say it's not as good as the 4.0 in terms of role playing or the EQ. I think the EQ dropped down a little bit, but yeah, but for the AGI, we need work like that. At least they're chasing something that beyond current human intelligence and capabilities.
So I want to pivot to a topic which is a little bit sensitive, so I don't want you to talk about Z if it's confidential information about Z, but maybe just talk about the industry in general, like what it looks like from the perspective of Chinese AI companies. And the issue is the AI chips. So as you know, the US is, for a while was not letting NVIDIA sell any of its good stuff. Now maybe the H20 is coming back. We also know there's being smuggled in. Even Blackwell GPUs are being smuggled into China. So I'm curious, like, again, don't say anything that you shouldn't say about Z, but from the perspective of the companies in your space trying to get enough compute to do really big training runs, do they feel worried about the supply of chips? Do they feel they can switch over to Huawei Ascend chips? Or maybe there are just enough NVIDIA chips around? What is the pre-training and RL training situation right now for companies like yours?
Okay, so I will start from Huawei chips because from my point of view, Huawei chips can replace some inference tasks. And it's doing quite well, maybe 80% level of NVIDIA chips. But for the training one, I think it's not mature yet. Or even Huawei is mature, those AI companies are not prepared to do the training and can calculate all the GPUs together. Yeah, so for the training, it's still in the experimental phase, and for the inference, I think it's quite robust. Some companies are already using it widely, and there are a lot of cloud services. Yeah, so for AI companies, most of AI companies, they don't directly use GPUs; they use cloud services. Yeah, and for the training side, I think chips are not enough. But for us, I think we have to make our company profitable, so we need to assess how many chips we need. Not more is better. Yes. So I think we try to make it a level that we can afford. But for companies like ByteDance and Quinn, they have unlimited resources. Maybe that's a huge test for them to get more chips. But for us, I think, yeah, we just buy the chips we can afford currently. Yeah, and we try to improve the algorithm. So why algorithm and open source is so important in China is that we try to do the training more efficiently and more effectively.
Right. So for you and say Kimi being more like a startup, your main constraint is money, like how much you can actually spend. When you talk about Alibaba, QN, or ByteDance, as you say, those are very profitable businesses. It's all basically how much the CEO wants to allocate to AI training, and it could be a huge amount. But then they might actually encounter the supply issues for NVIDIA chips for training. And so is that a real constraint right now, or are there enough smuggled NVIDIA chips in China that ByteDance and QN can still do whatever they want?
I think they cannot do whatever they want, but they have some tactics or have some contracts with companies. And ByteDance is a huge global company. They have relationship with US government as well, right? So during the negotiation on TikTok and other stuff. So I'm not sure like whether there's a specific agreement between ByteDance and US government or other parties, but they have different venues to solve problems. Yeah, compared to us. We can just accept things, but for companies like Quinn and ByteDance, they can do some legal stuff. I believe it's not illegal, but for the companies like in their sizes, they have more powers and can build more formal connections into the authority and with other entities.
And do you think DeepSeek is in a category all on their own? Like, do you think DeepSeek is GPU limited, or do you think that's not their main problem right now?
I think DeepSeek is on our side. Yeah, it's similar to us, and I think it's very sensitive right now because everyone's looking at DeepSeek. Now everyone's looking at ByteDance because most of people will consider ByteDance a video company or yeah, or shopping company. Not many people consider Quinn or ByteDance a really competitor against US top AI companies, but DeepSeek is different.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that like US government trying to stop any chips going to DeepSeek. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like the leadership at DeepSeek, they have a long-term vision. So they predict the future. They bought the chips before everything happened. And I think they're very smart and they're trying to use more advanced algorithms to train models. And I believe the reason why DeepSeek's success is their infrastructure and their data collection process. Yeah, they have very high quality data that nobody else have, because I would see the job description of their like data labeling people, very high standard. The bar is very high. You have to know everything about AI and also on some domain knowledge. So they're trying to use other stuff to complement the lack of GPUs.
So one part of the story I think that people talk about a lot in the United States is that when companies, whether it's OpenAI or X or Meta, they want to put up new data centers. It's very hard in the United States or even in the West to get the electrical power for those data centers because our grid hasn't grown at all in the last 20 years. The amount of electricity the US produces hasn't really changed much in 20 years. And so to start adding some gigantic data centers to the grid is actually very difficult. And when you compare it to China, where the amount of electrical power is growing every year by a large amount, it seems like it's easier for China to power big data centers. And you have individual provinces and individual cities trying to align with the government. They know the government likes AI. So each city or each region is putting up its own data center. So they're putting up lots of, physical buildings with plenty of power. And then they have to get chips to put in there. Does it seem like, from your perspective, that there's just a kind of possibly even oversupply of data center capacity in China because of this? Like everybody's rushing to try to do the same thing. I think Xi even made a comment like this at, one of the, party congresses saying, why is everybody investing in EVs and data centers? It's too much. Like some people should do other things. I thought Xi actually said something like this. So does that reflect reality? Do you sense something like that happening in China?
First of all, company like Z, Kimi, they don't build the data centers like Meta or X.
Yeah.
So it's not our task. And as I said before, we use cloud services and make it easier for us to do the inference or training. And there are companies or organizations doing data centers, but their services are not providing to us, but providing to other giant companies who need LLMs because there are some local deployment, and sometimes we have to fine tune our models, and then provide to some giant companies like oil companies, telecommunication companies. So these companies need a lot of inference power and resources. Yeah, so I cannot say exactly whether it's oversupplied or undersupplied, but the supply pipeline is not what it looks like in the United States, because in the United States, all major models are proprietary. So only OpenAI, Google, they can supply the model. But here we open source the model so other people can use our models to deploy and provide services. So the data center may be like decentralized. It's not controlled by AI companies. So we have like providers, the inference providers who can provide the services with Quinn, with GLM, and we cannot trace these services. So they're everywhere.
Got it. Yeah, I think, if the way you're describing it is a lot of this capacity maybe is going into inference. And if it's inference, the Huawei chips are actually good enough. So maybe these new data centers are all going to be full of Huawei Ascends and just running open source models doing inference for customers. Is that the possible future?
And also inference providers are co-designing with Huawei. And I believe that it's not just standard chips, and there are like different types of chips for different tasks, sometimes for vision task, for MOE architecture. Yeah, so you need to build different chips. So maybe for some tasks, the chips are undersupplied, and maybe for others, it's oversupplied. Yeah, but I cannot guarantee whether that's the case for all the scenarios.
Got it. Good. So maybe that's enough about hardware. Do you have any forecasts, sort of any non-obvious things that you think are going to come out of the open source AI competition in China in the next few years? Like, can you predict where things are going to go?
I think we will continue to do the open source and contribute more to the global community, because we are not there yet. So for the AGI thing, I think it's not a competition between US and China. It's a human thing. So globally, we need to collaborate on the key tasks, like the how to reasoning, how to do the COT. I think DeepSeek really contributed a lot to the community by letting people understand how to do the reinforcement learning, how to incorporate the COT inside a model. And for us, we are trying to do the similar thing and provide more to the community, and we expand the cake and we can get more. So as I said, we open source a model, and we can only get maybe 5% or 10% of all the services related to GLM, because now you can run GLM on your desktop. You can use GLM with Fireworks, Novita AI, all other US-based providers. We don't earn money from them, but I think it's necessary. Yeah, and for competition, you need to do a lot of things.
If you go to a party in San Francisco or a dinner, you might have on one side some guy who's very senior at OpenAI, some guy who's from Anthropic, another guy who's from Google. And, of course, there are some things which are really secret, but there's still plenty of leakage of information between all of these. They're all competing with each other, but there's still a lot of leakage of information between the engineers and even senior level people who are at these companies. I'm curious, how does it feel in China? So like you go to some event and maybe there are a bunch of other AI people there, and like, are there any secrets between what the QN people are doing and what the K2 people are doing, or do the engineers just talk to each other?
I think most of the information are confidential. And because we don't have parties in China, we only have like friends gathering or similar things. And for Kimi K2, I was impressed by their trillion parameter models, and I believe that nobody at Z.ai know they're doing that big. Maybe we know they're doing something, a foundational model, but we haven't expected it's that big. and have performance like that, and they're trying to use Kimi K2 inside Cloud Code. All those stuff are confidential.
Okay, well, it sounds like you guys are more careful than the guys here because I think there's more leakage here between the labs than what you described. So, like the example you gave for the audience, so K2, which is a really excellent model that came from Kimi, that was recently released and it has 1 trillion parameters, which is big. It's as big as I think any model. You guys are around 360 billion, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
365.
Right. So I guess you were saying before Kimi came out, before K2 came out, nobody knew it was quite going to be that big.
Yeah,
So that was a secret until it actually came out. I got it.
yeah, it's a secret. And also for GLM 4.5, I think nobody's knows it's a thing. It's a agentic model. Maybe someone is expecting us to provide a powerful model, but they haven't figured out yet. Because in 2024, I think some companies are misled by LM Arena, chatbot arena at that time. They try to improve the score on that arena, but neglect that we need something like Cloud 3.5 or like the useful models. So all models at that time are purely improved or training for general use or chat. But with the popularity of Cloud 3.5, we understand that we have to do more things other than chat. And with DeepSeek, we realized that, okay, it's time for doing the reasoning. And we can, let the model think for 10 minutes to get an answer for an IMO level question. Yeah, so we shift, and also not, we is not referring to Z.ai, but also the AI researchers. We change our mindset every month. And
Every month.
every month, every stuff. So we also learn from Kimi K2 a lot. Just 2 weeks ahead of us, we look at Cloud Code. That's amazing. And Cloud Code made it famous. And also we look at Manus, GenSpark, thinking about how we can build a model that can do the same thing as an agent. Yeah, so Manus, they use Cloud for Sonnet and with a lot of engineering stuff. And we try to replicate the trajectory and let the model learn from that trajectory. So the model can like call a function, get back here, continue to think, and then use another tool back here. So currently when you log in to the Z.ai chat, so our AI slides, it's a single agent architecture. So it can just use one model with several tools to complete a lot of tasks.
You mentioned that you're working 20 hours a day at Z and other similar companies. Is 996 still the rule even for people who are AI engineers and AI researchers?
I think there's no regulation or policies on that because I need to communicate with US-based partners, so I need to work very hard. So daytime, I manage the product team, the growth team, and nighttime, I collaborate with US-based providers, leaderboards, and even the scientists. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
But do you think like within the company though, the AI engineers and AI researchers are they actually working the equivalent of 996, or is it less intense than that?
I think it's close, but there's no policy. They're working very hard. It all depends on the work. Yeah, they have to. There's a deadline, right? So they have to allocate their time. Maybe they can go on a vacation and back and work maybe 20 hours a day, and maybe they can give up all the vacation and work 10 hours a day. Yeah, it depends on the schedule. They have to finish the task. Yeah, there's no one pushing them to stay in the office and and get back to home at 9. But the work, yeah, maybe they invented something that really automatic and they can go back at 5 p.m. Yeah. All depends on their skills and how they perform the tasks.
Great. Well, we're right at about an hour, so maybe we should start wrapping up. What do you think is the biggest misconception that, let's say, technical people who follow AI in the US, what is the biggest misconception that they have about what is happening in AI in China?
I think we are normal people. Yeah. So there's no secret sauce. We just follow the science. We did experiments. We read paper. There's no some hype or governmental thing that can really accelerate the process. So we welcome any invitations like this podcast or communication channels. Yeah, we believe that with more communications, we can understand each other better. And I do love the party side because I lack information, and we are willing to exchange information. Yeah, not the confidential information, but how we handle things, how we look at things. I think that's critical for innovation.
You know, if you're ever in San Francisco, I'll hook you up. And the scene in San Francisco maybe would seem very strange to you. So there are people like living in group houses. So this is even people who are in their 30s, for example, would like to live in a group house. And maybe everybody in the house is an AI engineer or researcher or something. Maybe they're working at a startup. Maybe one's working at Google, another guy's working at Anthropic, and they're all living in the same house. And they're throwing parties and even throwing hackathons on the weekend. So it's like a crazy scene. It's almost like this. I don't know if you're familiar with the 1960s in America, where there were just lots of crazy energy. In Silicon Valley, especially San Francisco and Berkeley, there's crazy energy around AI. So that's actually what I'm referring to when I talk about these parties and the information flow between different labs. It's very special.
Yeah, I love it. I truly love it. But in China, we have more home bars emerging currently.
Okay.
Home Good. Bars, and we also have an AGI bar here in Beijing. So if you visit China, I will invite you to the AGI bar, like people just randomly talking to strangers. And we don't have like many houses that includes people from Quinn or ByteDance and Z.ai, but we love like some houses or bars that can meet strangers. Yeah.
I'm going to be in Beijing, I think, in January, and I'm going to be visiting another physicist who is at Tsinghua, but he also works with ByteDance on applying the models to math and physics. So maybe if we go out together, you'll meet some people from some of the other companies and from academic AI. So we'll definitely do that in January.
Yeah. If you want to meet more people, I can arrange this, invite you to some other places, and because our company or our lab is originated from Tsinghua University. So very near from Tsinghua. Yeah,
great. Because I think I'll probably spend at least a week in your area. So it should be fun.
And yeah, so we are normal people. Back to that theme.
Okay.
There's no mystery, no Eastern mystery. So someone believe that, whoa, there are some tricks or other things. I think we are just normal people. And following.
I wouldn't say people here think there are tricks or that you're not normal people, but I think one thing people realize is because China is so big and the students study really hard, there's a very big population of people who can read and understand the AI papers, right? So when a new model comes out with some new innovation, KV cache or something, there's a very big pool of people in China, I think, who can read those papers and understand them. In the US, it's only kind of people who went to the top AI schools, maybe PhDs and stuff who can, I think, follow all this stuff. But I think increasingly there's a larger and larger set of people in China who can do this stuff. That's my theory. But I don't think it's because people are different. It's just there are a lot of smart people in China.
Yeah, they care about AI. So there are a lot of they began maybe coding from their 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of hackathons organized for high school students.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. So last year I joined a hackathon in the high school. There are people using Llama Index, LangGraph, LangChain to build agents. And maybe for this year, a different kinds of agentic workflow instead of the predefined workflows. So they're very interesting in this kind of stuff. So not just for models, but also for the architecture, for the framework. There are a lot of people contributing currently.
Great. Well, let's leave it at that. I know you're very busy, so I'll let you get back to work. But it's been great to have you on the podcast, and I hope I get to see you when I visit Beijing.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for the invitation. I think it's a great opportunity to talk to you and the audience and share more, and let us know more about the both US side and the Chinese side. And I think it's great.
Great.